Hey guys, and welcome to the Money Talks News Podcast. This episode, we're talking about college loans. You know, there's almost 1.75 trillion, that's trillion with a T, in outstanding student loan debt in the United States. People of all ages and walks of life are impacted by student loan debt. In fact, you might be surprised to learn that 22% of that debt is owed by people 50 years and older. Well, no matter your age, student loan forgiveness is now on the table. The Biden administration recently announced a program to forgive up to $20,000 in debt for borrowers. Today, we're going to talk about who qualifies for that loan forgiveness program and what you need to do to claim your slice of that forgiveness pie. I'm Stacey Johnson. As usual, my co-host will be financial journalist Miranda Marquardt. Hello, Miranda.
Hey, Stacey.
I'm so excited today. Do I sound excited? I'm feeling excited.
You sound thrilled. You sound thrilled.
Listening in and sometimes contributing is our producer, Aaron Freeman. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Aaron.
Sorry, I'm muted. I didn't realize I was muted. I said I'm so glad college is over.
Okay, well, anyway, today's special guest is Robert Farrington, a student loan expert and founder of The College Investor. Robert, we are delighted to have you with us today.
Thanks, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Because, you know, this college loan thing, first of all, it's of no interest to me. I'm 67 years old. I never had college loans. But I know it's of interest to lots of other people, but it's very complicated. So I'm glad you're here to explain it all to us.
They don't make it easy, that's for sure.
They really don't. Before we start, folks, remember one thing, that we don't give financial advice on this podcast. Make sure you do your own research, consult your own experts, do whatever you need to do before acting on anything that you may learn in this podcast. Okay, let's get started. And Miranda, because you just got out of college 20 minutes ago, you're 22 years old. Would you mind go ahead and start this off with Robert?
Well, let's do this. So anyway, so let's go ahead and get started here. So let's start with this loan forgiveness package. Robert, what are the basics? What is in this package?
Absolutely. So President Biden announced that you can get up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness if you meet certain income requirements. And of course, there's a lot of asterisks involved in that. So to get the $20,000, you have to have received a Pell Grant when you went to college. You have to make less than $125,000 a year as a single person, $250,000 as a married couple.
Otherwise, just a second. I got
and head of household couple.
I'm very excited about this head of household thing.
It doesn't happen.
One. Yes, it doesn't happen very much that head of household gets a little bit of love in these things. Usually, we're either lumped in with the individuals or some sort of difference is split. So I just had to interrupt you and say, hey, if you are a head of household, if you're a single parent and you're a head of household, you're in with that $250,000. So
which is awesome. And then, of course, if you didn't get a Pell Grant, you are eligible for $10,000. The asterisk is, of course, that you can't get more than you have as current student loan debt. So you have to have more than that. And, we have to hope that it goes through. You might have to apply for this. Some people will get it automatically, but I recommend that literally don't take the risk. Go to studentaid.gov, fill out the application when it goes live shortly. You can also sign up for alerts to be notified when it goes live so that you don't miss that opportunity window.
And as part of this as well, federal loan repayment that has been paused. It's been paused since 2020, but those federal loan payments are paused until December 31st, 2022. They say this is the final extension. This is a real extension. This is a real final extension. It's not happening again after this.
What's happening with this? Wait a minute. By the way, quick question. Does anybody here have student loans?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do? I mean, as we speak.
Yeah. So
okay. So here's my question: when they did when you didn't have to make payments for the last 2 years, is the interest accruing or not?
It is not.
Just frozen. Okay, that's cool.
The interest is not accruing. So my student loans are actually not on pause. I have student loans from the old FEL program. I didn't pay them off early because it's a 1.9% interest rate. So I have my money in the market.
So you're eligible for forgiveness then, except you make over $250,000.
No, I don't. But no, I'm actually eligible I did take out some loans for my MBA. I am eligible for forgiveness on those MBA loans.
So I think that's a great point, though. That's one of the asterisks as well, is that you have to have the right loan type. So to make matters more complicated, you have to have a direct student loan, which basically is any loan taken out after 2010. So if you have a student loan that you took out after 2010, you're probably good to go here. But if you have one of these earlier loans like Miranda does, an FFEL loan or potentially a Perkins loan, you are not eligible unless you consolidate today into a new direct student loan.
So you would advise people to do that, I would assume.
Most people should. I mean, honestly, it's one of these things. No, everyone should have done this in 2010. There was no reason to keep these FFEL loans. Miranda and I have chatted about this. But at the same token, there were some perks like the low interest rates. Yeah. Today, though, you've lost out on all these potential forgiveness programs. You lose out on those things unless you consolidate into a direct loan.
And I was never eligible for any of the other forgiveness or the programs, so I just didn't care.
Did I understand, Robert, that you said that this isn't even a done? I mean, you're not supposed to do this yet. Is that true?
Well, so Biden is doing this by executive order, and it could be challenged. They are rushing to make sure that this goes into effect before any challenges are. So if you are a borrower today, you should plan on taking action. Like, do not pass this up. Do not fret about it. But no, unless your balance gets $10,000 taken off of it, it is not a done deal yet. I do think that there's a lot of politics involved that could derail it. But on the flip side, I think it's still 90% likely to go through at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear, too, for our listeners or viewers. This is September the 15th of 2022. So, again, just to be clear, Robert, because I'm not that clear, you're saying on this day, September 15th, if I think I may be eligible for loan forgiveness, I'm still sitting on my hands until I know exactly what to do next. Is that true?
Correct, because nothing has happened. No one's getting their loans forgiven as of September 15th. The application is supposed to open on October 1st, and they're hoping to have the first balances wiped out within 6 weeks after that. So mid-November to December timeframe. And that's barring no legal challenges or anything else. So as of today, you're right. I think it's the most stressful time for borrowers because they are hoping that this happens, but there's no action that any individual can take today unless you do have an old FFEL loan that you want to consolidate to make it qualify.
So at least
would you do that now?
I would personally, but again, you have to look at the math of your situation and see, because it might not make sense mathematically. I think for most of these borrowers, it will. $10,000 off your loan and then re-amortized, even at a lower interest rate, the math should probably work in your favor of taking advantage of Biden's program versus keeping that loan.
Aaron, you were going to say something. I think I cut you off.
No. I was actually going to ask that same question about the interest rates versus the old loans and combining them.
Can we get into? Go ahead, Miranda.
Well, I was going to say, let's talk about what else is in this package, because it's not just student loan forgiveness. And so what else is going on here? We have new income-driven repayment. We've got forgiveness after 10 years for certain things.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, there's other stuff going on.
Well, I'm going to put a big asterisk on that one.
Once again, yes, more asterisks.
Because that's even more of a proposal than anything else. So President Biden also announced that he wants to reform the income-driven repayment plans based on the proposal that he actually made last year that has been stuck in negotiated rulemaking for years now. So these proposals actually aren't new, but President Biden had put it in a press release and it got a lot of press. So he wants to create a new income-driven repayment plan that will cap your monthly payment at 5% of your income for certain people. It will also forgive any remaining debt after 10 years versus the current income-driven repayment plans that eliminate your debt after 20 or 25 years. This one is very, very much a proposal, and I don't think people should even think about that too much at this point in time, because this has also been proposed like almost every year for the last 3 years, and it hasn't gone anywhere.
Interesting. I didn't even hear of that. Now, can I divert for a moment into something more interesting? How about the fight over this? I was at a party not long ago, and I was standing there next to a woman approximately my age, and she said, "How about them giving that money away to these kids? Well, I paid my student loans back, and why can't they pay their student loans back? How come they get a handout? What about people who who never went to college? Should they get $10,000 free in the mail? How do you guys respond to that?
Well,
I love this
Robert?
question. I'll dive into this one. So
let's talk about this, Robert.
I truly think it's really poor public policy. So this plan does nothing to help change the cost of college. It does nothing to help future borrowers. It doesn't fix the system. It actually isn't even going to help 80% of the people that get their student loans forgiven because their monthly payments won't even change. It is really bad public policy.
I'm shocked to hear you say this. I thought you'd be on the... Go ahead.
But here's the thing. On the flip side, I'm going to help every American that qualifies get their $10,000 because this is the American way that we do not let the government get any money from us that they do not deserve. So, I do not begrudge anyone that's getting loan forgiveness. I will help you find it. I will help you qualify for it because you and I, no one here on this podcast, we didn't write these laws. We have a job to make sure that we get as much money back from the government as we are legally entitled to. And it's very important for these people that are eligible to qualify.
And I think, too, a good point that keeps being made about this, I don't have a huge problem with the student loan forgiveness. Trillions more, not trillions, but billions of dollars were forgiven in PPP loans to plenty of other people. So I'm not going to begrudge people their $10,000. But Robert's point is very good. We don't have a mechanism in place. We're not addressing the root cause of this issue. And we need to. This is a nice stopgap for some people, but it doesn't get to the root of the problem.
Right.
And I think people forget that, this last fiscal year, so 2021 to 2022, the government lent out $93 billion in new student loans. So, okay, we forgive $300 billion today, but we're going to lend out another $90 billion this year, we're going to be back in the same situation in 4 to 5 years because we didn't fix the problem. And then I think you get the moral hazard problem, which I spent a lot of time talking to these Gen Zers. I'm on TikTok. A lot of them are like, hey, we're going to borrow as much student loan debt as we can because if they did it once, they'll do it again. And there's no reason why I'm not going to take advantage of my free money. And so we're just making the problems worse. I think this really doesn't make it. I do think that student loan forgiveness, though, should be part of the solution as well. I'm definitely not against student loan forgiveness. I think we need to look at programs that currently exist, like public service loan forgiveness, things like that, because I think most Americans feel good about the fact that, hey, if you're a teacher in America and you teach for 10 years, yeah, we can forgive your student loans. You did something good for all of us. And now we're going to kind of give you a bonus. It's no different than giving a signing bonus to go to work at a company or any kind of other thing. But I think people really do want to see kind of something for something, not just here's $10,000 kind of as a political tool, which is what we're seeing as this current administration is doing.
You know what I've always thought was weird, and you guys tell me what you think about this, because you know more about this than I'll ever know. But I've thought about this over the years. It's kind of like, imagine Cadillac. Instead of keeping their prices low, they just make the price of a Cadillac $100,000 when it could be $20,000. Okay, but then in order for you to afford it, they give you a loan at a very low interest rate, and if you default on that loan, it's on the taxpayer's back, not yours. So rather than make their car more efficiently, they're just making it easier for you to borrow money and guaranteeing that loan with taxpayer dollars. And that seems to me what's been happening in the education system all this time. And also they make it so complicated. I've done a million stories on financing a college education. And Aaron and I worked in television news together. And we shot these stories where you go in and talk to the people in charge of what's it called, the financial office that helps you
financial aid office, yeah.
Financial aid, thank you. And they'd go, well, don't pay attention to the sticker price. Just pay attention, because we're going to get you all kinds of grants and loans and, blah, blah, blah. Well, then why is the sticker price $50,000? I mean, what are you doing? Why are you obfuscating this? And it's the same thing when you're buying a car. They're putting on all these extras and blah, blah, blah. And the healthcare system, too. Not to get on a soapbox and rant all day, but it just seems to me like what you said, Robert, I agree with, is so we're just going to forgive the loan and then let colleges keep jacking up their prices. And then forgive loans for other people, or if we don't, then now they're pissed off.
Stacey, I think you're spot on. Is the more money you pump in through free money into the higher education system, the higher the prices will be, and there's no current controls to stop colleges. So there's a joke that every college in America is going to be $10,000 higher in sticker price within the next 2 years.
Yeah,
because there's no reason for them not to, because they know this is going to be fine. They're going to do a little bit the first year and they're going to test the waters. And then when everyone doesn't really do anything different, they'll jack it up again the next year. And within 2 years, you'll totally offset this forgiveness amount.
So basically, we're all saying there's some problems with this loan forgiveness program. And I actually thought that you guys would say that it was wonderful because, you're bleeding heart liberals. I don't know about you, Robert. But I mean, look at Aaron. He's a hippie. I mean, come on. But,
but that's the thing is I think loan forgiveness isn't necessarily the problem. Like I said, I think that you need to do something to earn it, though. This became a political handout versus a tool to improve people's lives on a policy level. Like, it doesn't solve any type of policy problem in higher education today.
Well, I think a lot of this really isn't so much a restructuring of the college education system. I think it's really just another part of the COVID relief. Was it 39 million Americans were in college, were college dropouts in July 2020, and only 950,000 of them went back in the fall. That's a huge difference. So there's and a big chunk of these people, like you said in the beginning of the show, were our age and senior citizens. So I think really this is more, a wrap up of the COVID relief program.
Well, and I think that's important to note because that's the law he's using to justify this. So
I didn't know that either.
President Biden's using the HEROES Act, which is designed for states of emergency. And the premise of the law is that we never leave an American worse off financially than they were before the emergency. And typically this is like a hurricane. Hurricane hits your house, like you can pause your loans, things like that. But since it's a national state of emergency, that's how they justified the payment pause. That's how they justified the 0% interest rate on student loans. Because the whole premise is, let's take a snapshot of everybody in March 2020. And if no interest happens and no payments happen, you will not be worse off with your student loans as a result of COVID.
Interesting.
But then he threw in this whole thing, but because people were so harmed by COVID, they need $10,000 or $20,000 off their loan. And that's the controversy that I think we're seeing is their justification for it's very iffy, but there's only a few people that could potentially challenge it. And that's why I still put this thing at 90% to happen, because there's still until people's loans get dollar amounts off of them, there's still the potential for legal challenges because it's iffy on what he's kind of using his justification for it.
Interesting. Guys, hold on. We're halfway through the show. It means it's time to pay our bills. After this quick commercial break, we're going to be right back to talk about exactly how we're going to take advantage of this communist loan forgiveness program. That was a joke when I said that. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Before we start, got to take a quick message. If you like what we're doing here, guys, do something for us. Share this show with your friends and family on your favorite social platforms and subscribe to our podcast. It takes you a couple of seconds. It really helps us. So please subscribe. Okay, now we are back. Before we get back, I want to share something interesting that I found in the little reading I've done about this topic. Because I've always said to people, I went to the University of Arizona. I'm from Georgia, so I was an out-of-state student. My cost for my college was $600 a semester out of state. Now, granted, obviously this was in the 1970s, and inflation has taken hold. But can you imagine the difference between $1,800 a year and $100,000? I mean, it's astounding to me. So I was thinking a lot of this, as you heard me rant a little while ago, I was thinking a lot of this is because colleges had no incentive to control their cost. But actually, as it turns out, this is what I learned recently. Since the Reagan administration, less and less of education expenses have been subsidized by the state and federal government. I didn't realize that. I thought this was just college costs going berserk. But actually, as it turns out, the feds used to subsidize state schools, and the states subsidized state schools, and they just started withdrawing their financial support. So that's one of the reasons these things got so expensive. And I didn't know that until just now.
No, you're absolutely right. And then you look at all the funding sources. So state and federal funding of higher education is nearing all-time lows, if not all-time lows. But on the flip side, these colleges are also competing so much for customers, which are students, right? And so they're spending fortunes on building stadiums, creating new dorms, building lazy river pools. And then how do you finance that, right? You pass a bond And then you take that cost and you pass it on to your students. So, back in the 80s and 90s, a college was competitive by having an amazing faculty. And faculty is cheap. You hire a professor for $200,000 a year. You give them a couple assistants to do their research. You maybe put them in a lab and you're good. Well, today that doesn't cut it. You got to have the amazing dorm. You got to have the gourmet food court. You got to do all these things, and all those costs and expenses to compete for customers is a really big precipice for how we've ended up here in terms of that. Because also, if you notice, a lot of where state and federal funding for higher education goes, it goes into the classrooms. Where are all the colleges spending their monies? Not in the classrooms.
Well, I do think it's a shame, though, Robert, that when I was a kid, and I may be overstating this because obviously this was so long ago that I took Dinosaur 101 when I was in college. But I remember thinking you went to college. College was about getting grades. You had the grades to get into college. And now for the last decade or more, it's been money. You can't even afford to go. I mean, there used to be no conversations about, well, how much is a college going to cost versus how much I'm going to earn after I get out? In other words, the return on investment. I mean, not that that was never something, but it was basically you went to college if you made good grades. It wasn't a fact that you wouldn't be able to. I mean, look what I was told you, $600 a semester. I mean, you can afford that. Your parents could afford it. So it wasn't about, it was just about grades, not about money. And now it seems like that's horrible. I mean, society shouldn't dictate, money shouldn't dictate how educated you get. I know there are workarounds too, but it's just a shame, I think, the way the system has devolved the way it has.
And you're right. I mean, there's ways for college to be free or very low cost, and there's ways to make college, a Cadillac and make it very expensive to go to college. But, I think that ROI conversation is key. I think people really do need to think about it. And I think that's actually the bigger argument of the student loan debate today. The reason we have a student loan crisis isn't because there's a lot of student loans out there. It's actually because people aren't getting the ROI on it. Because if there was higher wages and there was all these things, people would be paying their student loans just fine, and it wouldn't be a thing. So there's a bigger macroeconomic issue here around higher education student loan debt. And it's not just the fact that there's $1.7 trillion in debt. That's a scary number. But on the flip side, if everyone was earning more because they went to college, it necessarily wouldn't be a problem.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about exactly what we're supposed to do now. Let's do the takeaway on this program. And I realize there may not be one specifically, Robert, but if I'm sitting here with a college loan of any kind, tell me exactly what I should do.
Yes. So you need to first know what you have. Get organized. Figure out your loan type. Is it direct? Is it FFEL? If it's FFEL, you need to consolidate that to a direct loan if you want to qualify for the $10,000 in loan forgiveness. All right. Part 2 is you need to go to studentaid.gov and you need to sign up for their email notifications to get notified when the application opens. Or if you're listening to this after October 1st, you need to just go to studentaid.gov and you need to apply for your student loan forgiveness. So like I said, some people will get it automatically. Don't risk the government automatically doing anything for you. Go apply at studentaid.gov to make sure you get it. And then finally, you need to plan for payments to resume in the new year. Not to say it won't get extended again, but you should be ready to resume payments should they be resuming.
Yeah. And I think there's also something, if you don't know what kinds of loans you have, you need to go to the National Student Loan Database, the NSLDS. You need to go to the National Student Loan Database, look up what kinds of loans you have. It's also important to note that private loans are not included in this. So if you do have private loans, it's not included. Another thing to keep in mind, there is a special public service loan forgiveness waiver, and that is available through the end of October of 2022. And so that's coming up. So check and see if you're eligible for that. Certain FFEL loans, certain employment situations, other things that weren't necessarily part of the original PSLF program. There's a special waiver right now that you might be eligible for this PSLF. So you want to get that figured out by the end of October as well.
What do you guys think about, we're almost out of time, but what do you guys think about these organizations that tell you they'll help you with your student loans? You pay them a fee because, just listening to both of you, it's like, God, this is over my head. I'm just trying to do, make my house smart, and I put in electric blinds and blah, 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 and lights and blah. And it's so confusing to me. I'm like, I have to pay somebody to help me do this. And I'm not stupid. I mean, I own a website, but it's just complicated. When I hear you guys talk about this college thing, it's the same thing for me. It's like, if this were me, I feel like I just pay somebody. And there are people out there that will, for a fee, will negotiate all this stuff for you. What do you think about that? Do you think you should just buckle down and figure it out yourself? Or do you think it makes sense to pay somebody?
No.
Yeah, no. The answer is the only circumstance where you would want to pay someone for help with your student loans is if you're using a financial planner and you're doing it as part of your whole entire financial picture, because there's a lot of levers you can pull in terms of dealing with your student loan debt, but you can't just do it by itself. So if you want to talk to a financial planner, go find a CFP, go find a real financial planner, and student loans should be part of that equation for you. A lot of these companies that are out there, a lot of people are getting text messages, emails, voicemails. Those are scams. The Department of Education, your loan servicer, they're not going to call you, and they're definitely not going to make you pay a fee to get this done. So, I like to rag on the government a lot, but studentaid.gov is actually a really good website to figure out your loans, to figure out your repayment plans. And of course, it's free. These loan servicers, we like to rag on them as well, but they can help you navigate this. So call your loan servicer. I would encourage you to have a little grace and patience when you call them as well. So if the president were to announce something, give them a week to communicate that message to their call center. Don't call like 5 minutes after the announcement and assume that the poor worker there is going to know how to help you. Give them a little grace, realize it's a call center, and realize things are moving fast. But at the same time, no action is required so quickly that you need to move so fast. So call your loan servicer. It's free. Go to studentaid.gov. It's free.
I'm glad I asked you that because I didn't even think of this. But of course, the cockroaches are going to be coming out for this loan forgiveness program because it's complicated and because they're going to be able to pull the wool over people's eyes.
Yep.
I already have several friends who have messaged me and said, "Is this legit?" To something that they've received. They're like, "Oh, I saw this ad. Should I do this? Is this legit? I know there's forgiveness." I'm like, "That is not legit." And then I point them to Robert's website where I say, "Here is some reliable free information for you."
And what a great transition to take us to the end of our show because we're just about to promote Robert's website. Okay, folks, we are out of time. We are never, however, out of a topic. Dig deeper. You're going to find links to lots more info in our show notes. And remember, if your goal is to make more, to spend less, to retire rich, your online home is moneytalksnews.com. And don't forget to check out Miranda's online home as well. That is Miranda Marquit, MARQUIT.com. And of course, you want to visit Robert at his website. That's thecollegeinvestor.com, thecollegeinvestor.com. If you've got a question, comment, or topic you'd like to suggest, we would love to hear from you. Just email us at hello@moneytalksnews.com. That's hello@moneytalksnews.com. And I'm going to say this one more time. If you like what we do something for us. Subscribe to our podcast. Only takes you a couple seconds. Really helps us and makes our parents proud too. So if you like us, show us and subscribe. I'm Stacey Johnson.
I'm Miranda Marquette.
I'm Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Robert Farrington.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Robert. And we're going to see all of you folks next time.